Today on Junkyard Digs, we are driving over to my buddy Phoenix's place because Facebook Marketplace is a terrible thing for a man to have access to.
Most car channels restore classics under bright lights, with perfect tools and even better luck. Junkyard Digs did the opposite. Instead of spotless garages and six-figure builds, it threw viewers into muddy fields, collapsing barns, and cars that hadn't fired in decades, and then made a promise. We're driving this thing home. That single decision changed everything. From the outside, it looks simple. Find an old car, make it run, hit the road. But behind the camera, there's a lot more going on. Calculated risks, mechanical instincts built long before YouTube, and a brand that quietly grew into something much bigger than a hobby channel. Add in shifting friendships, online rumors, and the pressure of millions of eyes watching every move, and the story gets even more interesting. Because the real Untold story isn't just about reviving dead cars. It's about what happens when authenticity becomes the business, and the stakes keep getting higher. The first time they tried to drive a decades-dead car hundreds of miles home, it didn't just feel risky, it felt reckless. And that was the point. While most car creators focused on polished restorations and controlled shop builds, Junkyard Digs leaned into uncertainty. No perfect conditions, no guaranteed outcomes. Just a forgotten machine, basic tools, and a long stretch of highway daring them to fail. That drive-it-home formula changed the entire tone of the channel. Suddenly, every revival wasn't just about getting an engine to cough back to life. It was about survival. Would it overheat? Would the brakes give out? Would they end up stranded in the middle of nowhere? Viewers weren't watching a repair. They were watching a gamble unfold in real time. And that unpredictability made it addictive. You couldn't skip to the end because the end wasn't certain. Breakdowns weren't edited out. Mistakes weren't hidden. When something went wrong, you saw it. When something barely worked, you felt the tension. But that confidence, the calm way problems were handled on the side of the road, didn't come from nowhere. It was built long before YouTube ever entered the picture. And that's where the story gets even more interesting. Long before abandoned cars and roadside revivals became content, there was a completely different kind of pressure shaping the mindset behind the channel. Kevin wasn't just some guy who liked old iron. He had a background working as a military aviation mechanic. And that detail explains a lot. When you're responsible for machines that can't afford to fail mid-air, you learn to think differently. You don't panic. You diagnose, you improvise. You make things work with what you have. That calm, methodical approach is exactly what viewers see when a 40-year dead engine refuses to cooperate on the shoulder of a highway. It also explains the confidence. There's a big difference between someone guessing and someone trained to troubleshoot under pressure. When a carb floods, when ignition timing is off, when wiring looks like a rat's nest, there's no frantic scrambling. There's process. That steady presence is part of what makes the chaos watchable instead of stressful. And here's the twist most people miss. That discipline gave the channel credibility early on. It didn't feel fake, it didn't feel staged, it felt like someone who genuinely knew how far they could push a machine before it pushed back. But technical skill alone doesn't build loyalty. Something else turned these revivals into something bigger than just wrenching. And that's where the partnership changed everything. Technical skill built the foundation, but personality built the audience. And that's where the dynamic between Kevin and Mook changed everything. The moment it stopped being just one guy wrenching alone, the channel felt different. There was banter, there were inside jokes, there were moments where one of them clearly thought the other had completely lost his mind for attempting another drive-it-home gamble. That back and forth turned breakdowns into entertainment. Viewers didn't just tune in to see if the car would make it. They tuned in to see how the two of them would handle it. Who would stay calm? Who would crack first? Who would suggest the wild fix that somehow worked? That chemistry made the risk feel shared, and that's powerful. It also created something deeper, attachment. When a channel starts to feel like hanging out with friends, people get invested. They notice tone shifts. They notice who's on camera more. They notice who's missing. And that's where things get interesting. Because once an audience feels connected to the personalities, not just the projects, every change sparks questions. Every absence fuels speculation. Every collaboration, or lack of one, gets analyzed. What started as two guys trying to get dead cars running slowly turned into something bigger than just builds. It became a brand people cared about. And that kind of loyalty, it brings opportunity, but it also brings pressure. At some point, it stopped being just two guys chasing old cars for fun. The views climbed, the audience grew, and suddenly, what started as a passion project turned into a full-blown business. That shift changes everything. When millions of people are watching, every upload carries weight. There are sponsors to consider, merch to design, deadlines to hit, a website to run. What once felt spontaneous now has to be strategic. And that's where things quietly evolve behind the scenes. You can actually see the transition if you look closely. Early videos had that raw, almost chaotic energy. Later episodes still felt authentic, but sharper, more intentional. Better pacing, bigger recoveries, longer road trips, the stakes escalated. And with growth comes expectation. Fans don't just want a revival, they want a spectacle. They want the impossible car. The longer drive, the bigger risk. That pressure can push creativity, or push limits. It also opens the door to collaborations, crossovers, and becoming part of a much larger car YouTube ecosystem. That exposure brings new viewers, but it also brings comparison, rumors, and online chatter that can spiral fast. Because once you're not just a channel but a brand, every move gets analyzed. And what happens when the audience starts reading between lines that may or may not even be there? Here's the part most viewers never think about. Success on YouTube doesn't just bring opportunity, it brings pressure. Quiet, constant pressure. When a channel grows as fast as Junkyard Digs did, the expectations skyrocket. Every upload has to perform. Every revival has to top the last one. The audience wants bigger saves, riskier road trips, crazier roadside fixes. And if one video feels smaller, the comments notice. There's also the money conversation. As the channel expanded, merch dropped, sponsorships appeared, and the brand clearly leveled up. That's normal, it's part of the game. But once revenue enters the picture, some viewers start questioning motives. Is it still about saving cars, or is it about chasing views? That kind of speculation spreads fast online, even when there's no proof behind it. And then there's burnout, constant travel, filming long days, editing massive projects, keeping the energy high on camera no matter what's happening off camera. It's easy to underestimate how draining that can be. The tricky part? The audience only sees the finished product. They don't see the stress behind the upload button. And when pressure builds quietly in the background, even small changes, missed appearances, different vibes, fewer collaborations, can ignite rumors almost overnight. Because once viewers start looking for cracks, they'll swear they see them everywhere. Then came a problem that had nothing to do with carburetors or blown head gaskets, scammers. As the channel grew, fake accounts started popping up. Pages pretending to be Kevin. Messages claiming giveaways. Fans getting DMs that looked official but weren't. At one point, public warnings had to be posted just to tell viewers, that's not us. And that kind of thing hits harder than people realize. Because trust is everything. When your entire brand is built on authenticity, real breakdowns, real mistakes, real reactions, any hint of deception, even from outsiders, can shake the foundation. Even if it's not your fault, your name is still attached to it. And in the online world, nuance doesn't spread as fast as drama. At the same time, forums and Reddit threads started dissecting everything. Who's in the latest video? Who isn't? Why did that collaboration stop? Is something going on behind the scenes? Most of it is pure speculation, but speculation travels fast. And here's the reality. When you invite millions of people into your world, they start feeling entitled to explanations. Silence becomes suspicious. Normal changes become proof of some hidden fallout. The wild part? None of it requires actual evidence, just curiosity and a comment section. And that leads straight into the biggest question of all. What's actually real and what's just the internet filling in blanks? Here's the twist. There isn't one massive scandal. There isn't some explosive secret waiting to be exposed. The real Untold story is quieter than that, and honestly, more interesting. Junkyard Digs didn't blow up because of controversy. It grew because it felt real. Risky revivals, unfiltered setbacks, a willingness to attempt drives most people wouldn't even consider. That authenticity became the brand. And once authenticity becomes the product, the pressure to protect it becomes intense. Every decision suddenly matters more. Who appears on camera, which projects get chosen, how much risk is too much risk, even what doesn't get said can turn into a headline in the comment section. That's the trade-off of success in the digital world. You gain reach, but you lose control over the narrative. And yet, through all the rumors, speculation, and internet noise, the core formula hasn't really changed. Find something forgotten, make it run, take the chance. That. Consistency is probably why the audience keeps showing up. Because at the end of the day, people aren't watching for perfection, they're watching for possibility. The possibility that something left for dead can roar back to life. And maybe that's why the channel still works. Not because of drama, not because of mystery, but because every time that engine fires, it feels like beating the odds. And people never get tired of that. The future is where things get even more unpredictable. As the channel continues to grow, the risks get bigger, the audience gets louder, the expectations get heavier. Every revival now carries more weight than it did in the early days. It's no longer just about proving a car can run. It's about proving the formula still works. And that's the challenge. Can you keep the raw energy once the cameras are better? Can you stay grounded when millions are watching? Can you protect authenticity when it's also your livelihood? That's the tightrope. But here's what makes Junkyard Digs different. The heart of it hasn't changed. It's still about dragging something forgotten back into the light and giving it one more shot at the road. That simplicity is powerful. The real Untold story isn't behind-the-scenes drama. It's the constant balancing act between growth and grit. And as long as they keep betting on dead cars and long drives home, people will keep watching to see if they beat the odds one more time.